Just days after the release of and on the same day that you could spend $100 on Thin Air, Monster Box released an update for their FNAF-style game, In Heat Lustful Nights, an adult game in the genre with actual gameplay. This time, they addressed the cliffhanger from the end of the arcade mode, which went through some changes during and after posting my last video about this game, which I would recommend watching for a deeper explanation of the core mechanics. I'm just going to jump right into it, but with a reminder that all of my footage is from the SFW version of the game, so that I can more easily show it on YouTube. Since my last video on this game, Monster Box had patched the first 6 nights of arcade mode, as well as the tutorial in response to feedback. I replayed this first 86% of the game to get a better idea of what they had done, and found myself pleasantly surprised. The tutorial does a much better job of explaining the mechanics, including spelling out more of Saya's powers. The primer for each night is also more detailed, with greater clarity on each of the girls while sticking with Saya's POV, though the player may still have to figure out some of the specifics. Thankfully, there's not as much trial and error anymore. There's also a tab that outright explains the powers and how they work, which helps the mode feel less overwhelming. I will mention, however, that I hardly ever use the powers and managed to win. Now that I mention it, the nights did feel easier to get through this time, including the big problem nights that I mentioned before. I'll admit that there was some familiarity at play, but even taking that into account, I did notice some rebalancing within each night, which mostly amounted to adjusting the AI levels to give players more of a chance while still presenting some form of challenge. The game isn't finished yet, so there's still time for them to make changes, but for now I think they struck a good balance. I did still struggle with Night 6, the boss fight against Cheshire Sammy, but mostly from dealing with the goonified versions of the girls, especially how that makes the non-corrupted security office Sammy more difficult to identify. As I was typing this script, I wondered if I should take any weird sense of pride in the fact that I beat this mode pre-patched before. I guess I could, but I also think that newer players are better off with the new version, especially with all the additional tweaks across the board, like removing an unnecessary key press so getting a prize for Nightclub Nile from the claw machine, or how the minimap reduces the amount of stress when dealing with Nightclub Ari or security office Cass by just telling you where the moons or machines are alongside better sound cues. I also like that I could better identify the non-corrupted security office Sammy without essentially flipping a coin, and those are just the ones that I noticed. The increased transparency is a better approach overall, but it's good they don't outright hold your hand. Since the story is the same for this first 86%, here's a quick recap. I got some things wrong before since there was a lot going on, so I'll do my best to get it right this time. If I still get something wrong, please let me know in the comments. In the arcade mode, Cass walks Employee 20 through a digital VR training program called the Arbuk Dale Employee Preparedness Program, designed to make him better at his job. After covering the basics, she runs into a glitch and has to restart the system. At this point, Saya appears and dodges the reset. She takes control of the program and assists Employee 20 while she has her own battle against Cheshire Sammy.
There's no reason you and I have to be at odds, handsome. All I want is that little birdie inside your head.
Throughout each night, the phone calls explore the animosity between Saya and Cheshire Sammy, whose background is illuminated through secret messages that you can listen to. Based on this replay and some additional clues I found within the game, my current understanding is that Franklin Dale created Sammy Sunday and collaborated with Natasha Arbuk, with assistance from an Aaron Dusk, to bring her to life. However, the Sammy creations kept failing for one reason or another, with Cheshire Sammy representing the most stable one up to a point. Arbuk and Dale also treated Sammy very differently, with Arbuk pushing her as a scientific marvel while insisting on aesthetic perfection and focusing on sex appeal.
If this one fails, then they can all fail. I need to study it. I have to fix it. Because if I don't, then if you don't, you'll make another.
Dale, on the other hand, showed genuine kindness towards her to the point of platonic affection by letting her hug him in an implied show of vulnerability.
Now you want me to leave alone? Hey, I didn't think you were a hugger. That's fine. I can be one too.
At the end of Cheshire Sammy's boss battle, if timed right, Employee 20 knocks her back. While she's on the ground, Saya asks Employee 20 to finish her off, but she's clearly not down for the count just yet. Right after this, Saya tries to help Employee 20 escape from Cheshire Sammy's wrath and, subsequently, the simulation. You'll notice right away that this remaining 14% of the story features a major change in gameplay style, this time taking the form of a light gun rail shooter like the House of the Dead or Time Crisis. The controls are very easy to grasp, just point and click, and the new wrinkles are very minor. While headshots are best, some enemies are shielded and take more hits before they go down. Poppy may also walk in with a bomb, which you can shoot for AoE damage, and Maddie may sometimes sometimes block your view. You must sadly shoot her to continue. At certain points, you'll be attacked by a more avian version of Saya and have to play an old-school 2D platformer starring Sammy Sunday. The levels themselves aren't too difficult, but you'll have to parry threats outside of the game while doing so. Just listen for the sound cues coming from the left or right. While shooting your way through the VR space, you'll also fight off a few mini-bosses until you reach the Jabberwocky, a reference to a nonsense poem featured in Through the Looking Glass. This fight isn't too difficult, but it is challenging on a first run as you adjust to its patterns. The amount of clicking can strain your arm if you're not careful, though I wouldn't want Monster Box to eliminate any shred of difficulty. A final boss for a mode this ambitious in an adult game should at least have some challenge, but it can't be bang your head against a wall or walk through the park. Again, find a good balance. Since I was using a mouse for arcade mode, I did find that you could cheese the rail shooting portion with an auto clicker, but I only did this on a replay when I was looking for any possible differences with the adult content turned on. There aren't any, in case you're wondering. So, what about the rest of the story? Well, this is where we get into some big spoilers, so skip to this timestamp if you'd rather experience it for yourself. If you're still here, we start off this portion with a few revelations.
We were working together. She wanted me to take her body and open her cage.
What? What's going on? You don't believe her, do you?
For one, it turns out that Cheshire Sammy had been helping you earlier with the Frogger minigame used to defuse Poppy's bombs back in the nightclub. On top of that, Cheshire Sammy worked with Saya on a plan to let her leave the simulation as she needs a body to do so.
Yes, I was working with her, but I just wanted to be free.
She said that to me too. But if I took your body and opened that door, she would have killed me.
As they argue, we get the idea that both of them wanted freedom from their cages, but both felt betrayed by the other, with Cheshire Sammy suggesting that Saya is locked up because of how manipulative she is. At the end, however, we get the biggest bombshell of all.
I couldn't help her get what she wants because I can't reunite her with a dead man.
Dead?
The only one in Sammy's life who had shown her any kindness is gone, and has been for some time. With nothing left to lose, Cheshire Sammy decides that if she can't leave, then no one will.
I'll make sure of it.
And we can play this game over and over and over and over and over again.
As Employee 20 and Saya make their way through the simulation, it continues breaking down as Cheshire Sammy confronts more of her emotions. From the cutscenes that play after each successful run of Sammy Sunday in Wonderland, we get a real sense of her connection with Dale, who viewed her as his daughter and wanted to just let her be herself. Cheshire Sammy is angry with him at first, but eventually can't ignore her sadness over his passing, which left her feeling alone and abandoned.
This might sound a little Donald against me, but getting to know you has been the best thing in my life.
Then why did you give up? I'm here. I'm here.
The arcade minigame itself is a reflection of her true feelings, as Sammy Sunday is last seen crying while progressing through the level. Following this final minigame, Employee 20 is given a knife by an unnamed panda girl, whom we had seen before in passing, and stabs a giant heart, ending Cheshire Sammy's reign over the simulation. Employee 20 reaches out to Cheshire Sammy, whose rage and sadness disappears as she turns back into Sammy.
He was all I had.
He says he knows it hurts. He's sorry.
Although she had tried to kill him, Employee 20 doesn't hold it against her, and she declares that he's just like Dale.
Can I ask you a favor? Don't forget about me.
And with a crack of her whip and a flash of her smile, Sammy Sunday vanished over the horizon. They did not know when or if she'd return. They'd light a candle in the window every night, just so she'd always be able to find her way home. Good night, Miss Sunday.
With this last request, she has, in her own way, finally achieved the freedom that she sought. I'll admit, I didn't expect an adult game to blindside me with so much emotional depth. I already felt bad for Sammy, even more so after seeing her Sammy Sunday sprite cry, but the ending here nearly brought me to tears the first time that I saw it. Jury's out on the quality of the writing across the whole game, as it isn't finished yet, but it's solid here and the voice performances really sell it. After this goodbye, however, we get a tease that this story isn't over quite yet.
Shit. I do not give you permission to die. Just Hold on. I've got you. You'll live. Probably.
And with that, we're now 100% done with arcade mode. The remaining 14% did a good job of tying the mode together, and I thought the experimentation and gameplay style felt rather fitting. It helped that Monster Box had a good sense of how to ease the player between a more traditional FNAF experience and a rail shooter, which isn't something you see a whole lot in this space. Based on what names get a lot of attention these days, it's interesting how an adult game like In Heat feels comparatively more refreshing and innovative. I also liked how the developers drew out more of the Alice in Wonderland elements and made the main themes of the game clearer. As I've said in previous videos on this game, it seems to understand so far that horror isn't just physical, but also psychological, as we have issues with bodily autonomy within the setting and how Diamond Straits itself takes a mental toll on the girls. In one way or another, what the girls really seek is a freedom that they've been denied. Arcade mode starts to illuminate the light within the darkness of the setting and suggests that through true kindness, Employee 20 can begin to make a real difference. My only real issue with this mode is that sometimes the sound cues in the final arcade cabinet are a little too quiet. We'll have to see how this plays out, of course, but it's nice to see some good development all around. It's also refreshing to have a real story for this genre and not the illusion of one, so I remain curious about where it will head next. This update also added new content to the gallery, which unlocks after finishing arcade mode. There is 1 new location, 4 new characters, new outfits where applicable, and additional animations. For those who are curious, the added characters don't have an NSFW option because they weren't specifically designed with that in mind. Honestly, I'm okay with that. This may be an adult game, but it doesn't need to be sexy 100% of the time. Now, I've tried talking about the lore of In Heat before, and I decided that this time, I'm not going to do that. At the very least, I'm not going to try to speculate on the plot because it's a very easy way to get off base on something that isn't finished yet, which can build up false expectations that can leave you disappointed if you get too attached to a fan theory. As such, I don't want to contribute to what I've seen called the post-MatPat way of engaging with media that makes it too easy to ignore the whole point of a story in favor of dissecting every last atom for lore hints. In other words, missing the forest for the trees. That said, I could still bring up that they've mentioned Erin Dusk, who is implied by her Steam trading card to be responsible for helping bring the girls to life within Diamond Straits. Oh yeah, did you know that they hid lore inside the Steam trading cards? Yeah, I certainly feel like a fool for not knowing that when I made my other videos. For now, although we know her name and appearance, and that she has appeared in other parts of the game, she's still pretty mysterious. I'm sure they'll do this anyway, but it will be wise to explain her role within Diamond Straits in the game itself, and not rely on players getting random card drops or obtaining specific in-game collectibles. Even Ichiro Oda recognized the issue with relying on outside media after he revealed the name of Jewelry Bonnie's Devil Fruit in the SBS for One Piece Volume 107, and noted that he should say it in the actual manga because not everyone reads the SBS. While I'm talking about the trading cards, there's one for a rat girl named Rakata, but she hasn't been seen or heard in the game yet as far as I'm aware. And I still wonder what Cass's important work is. That's a big lingering mystery that we'll surely get answers to down the line. For now though, that about wraps up the video. I'm looking forward to the next few updates where they're currently adding more dating chapters, though I may wait until I can make a video that's more substantial. Also, Monster Box is currently developing In Heat Honeymoon 3D, a canon remake of the spin-off visual novel In Heat Honeymoon. There's a non-zero chance that I'll want to give that its own video in the future. In the meantime, consider subscribing if you'd like to encourage my foolish endeavor of making videos about a continuously updating early access game. Until we meet again.